It may seem odd for a third positionist to make a video about how nationalism clogs our point of view, but what I would like to say, I have always identified as some form of third positionist. I was raised by a third positionist. My father was a Rockwell style neo Nazi, which is more conservative oriented, Republican y than, say, a National Socialist from, a German National Socialist. But it is still National Socialism. It wasn't until I was 10, I think, that I identified as a National Socialist, and not until I was about 27 that I identified as a Mussolini fascist. Recently, I only identify as a third positionist, though I do use the term fascist a lot. But I was enlightened to an ideology called Peronism. The only reason I was not enlightened to Peronism earlier than this was my mind was clouded with nationalism. It wasn't until the Trump election cycle, the 2016 election cycle, that I began to soften my attitude toward Latin America. And I've dated Hispanic girls in the past and stuff like that. It wasn't that I had a racial issue with Latin Americans, at least not the ladies. But the thing was, how it worked out was I was a U.S. nationalist. And it's interesting how in the U.S. we can see German National Socialism as patriotic. Primarily, I think, because many of us, like myself, are predominantly German. At least on my father's side, I'm predominantly German. So it doesn't seem alien to us. However, for some reason, Latin American forms of third positionism do seem somewhat alien for some reason. And it's interesting because the cultures aren't that terribly different. But what happens is we have a narrowed viewpoint based on what we consider to be our outlook versus someone else's outlook. And what's happening is this is allowing basically all of us to be set against one another much easier than we should be. Important points to understand about third positionism is we are not the majority in any nation that we live in. The other thing that's important to understand is being white. White is not the only race that is third positionist. And one of my issues that had softened my view toward Latin Americans was a little girl, not little girl, she was like 15. Her name was Fatima. And she was being bullied by white supremacists, that she herself was a National Socialist and called herself a National Socialist and agreed with National Socialism. And she was the one that initially opened my eyes to Hispanic National Socialism, or in this case, fascism under the gold shirts. Later, actually almost immediately later, I met a very beautiful girl in a National Socialist group. And I've mentioned her obviously in past videos. And what was funny is this black dude, I think, said, "What the hell this? A beautiful indigenous girl with National Socialist views or Nazi views or something." I forget exactly. But what was funny is I was so taken by the girl's appearance that I actually stated, I think my exact words were, "Oh my God, you are perfect," meaning she looked perfect. Then upon learning more about this girl's insights and things of that nature, I understood she was ultimately the most amazing third positionist I've ever met. And I would have never taken this view if I kept my firm point on nationalism, on racialism, on these things. I would have never looked more into this. And this is a big problem. Because when we narrow our views, see, and this girl, the girl that I met in the National Socialist group on Facebook, is the one that enlightened me to Peronism. And without me softening my outlook to Latin American nationalism, or I should say third positionism, and lessening my own views on U.S. nationalism, I would not have been able to advance my own outlook to a greater, more productive view. I'm very happy with the broadening of my viewpoints, and it is very sad that third positionism, in my opinion, is going to die for basically because of its narrow-mindedness. And that's about all this video will be about today.